Back. This is Newsgang. We're seeing your tweets. Thank you very much. The hashtag is Newsgang. It's the international edition. And we're still talking about that tragic event. But out of that, out of the ashes, emerged celebrities, disaster celebrities to be precise. Take a listen to elected officials who made their way to Ngando area.
Area hii haina shule hata moja ya umma kwa sababu hakuna ardhi ya umma ambayo inaweza kuwanufaisha wananchi wa Ngando. Kama tungewezeshwa na president na wizara yake ya elimu, tungetumia mali ya umma ambayo inapatikana hapa ambayo ni NGCDF kuwezesha kwamba kukuwe na shule ya umma ndani ya ardhi hii.
Most of the land in this city was acquired fraudulently by ex-councillors and leaders of the county assembly. We have to go and look at the land report and look at how we can recover public land. Let's not look at it just as the problem of the government. It is our problems as citizens. Because after all, we're the ones giving birth to those children without a plan on where they're going to be educated.
Ministry of Education imeacha mashule kabisa haifuatilizi. Na wale ambao enforcers wanafaa kuangalia mijengo kwenye shule yetu. Wameenda either wanachukua hongo, wanaacha mijengo inajengwa ile ambayo ni substandard. Hata place ya police station hakuna hapa Ngando.
We just want to thank the media for bringing to the attention of the nation the tragedy that has happened to our children. And as KNH, as you can see, we are doing our best to try to attend to the emergencies which have come here.
I know I was not the only one wondering about Nicholas Gumbo until we remembered that he's the chair of the KNH board. Yeah. LK, let's begin with you. So why did we call them disaster celebrities again?
Because they are. They left little room for anyone to doubt that. You could see they arrived, and instead of looking for victims,
correct,
the families
themselves,
they're looking for cameras.
Correct.
Where are the journalists? Where are the cameras?
Correct.
They are busy wanting to be seen to have gone to this scene. And this is a culture that is really taking root in this country, and it's a very, very bad culture. Don't get me wrong. Leaders must be in places where the public has gone through a tragedy. But how they handle it, for a start, they should not look like they landed in parachutes from a different planet. You see, when you listen to from KJ to Honorable Manga and even Pasaris, they all sound like they have been in space all this time. Correct. And suddenly landed in Dagoretti. They had a lot of things to say about what is missing. Lack of public schools. You wouldn't know they have been in this country with us. But number two is the lack of empathy.
Correct. This
lack of empathy really is a problem.
But Pasaris condoled with the people, and she says in a tweet that she brought them soft drinks and bread.
Do it as the first instance, not as the second.
Correct.
Where a majority of those leaders, and I don't think we have illustrated well with the footage we have, because some of it was really bad, because it was a scramble for cameras.
Correct.
Were you scrambling to be seen?
Right.
This is a disaster. There are people in pain. There are families that have lost children. Life has changed completely for them. And your interest is being seen on camera, sounding holier than thou. Somebody else is to blame. It's not me. I've just arrived.
My concern is not necessarily their presence there. It is the content of their soundbites. Right. Number one, yes, there's no public land in Ngando. I had Honorable Millicent Omanga say, all this land has been grabbed by former councillors. I don't remember any petition, any motion, any demand from Parliament that any of those leaders who are there have made for the recovery of these parcels of land, public land, that has been grabbed by the former councillors. Because if land has been grabbed by a former councillor, that former councillor has a name. Exactly. So why not institute a procedure of recovering that piece of land from the august house? That's why you are elected. Three functions of a lawmaker, of a member of parliament, is legislation, oversight, representation. So in your capacity as a representative, go and demand that the land that was acquired irregularly, illegally, be recovered. Number one. Number two, if there is no public land in Gando where a public school can be built, there is compulsory acquisition. Why not petition the Ministry of Education to build a school in Gando or any of these places where land has been grabbed? In fact, ask that the government purchases land for the construction of a public primary school.
Because we have done it before. With SGR here.
From Mombasa to Nairobi and now to Naivasha is not entirely built on government land. It's a good chunk of it is built on private land that has been acquired compulsorily, isn't it?
Okay.
So why not do the same here?
So it is possible.
Yes, it's good to go there, but I don't see any solution in going there and saying all these things, because once they have said them and they left,
they wait for the next one.
Back to normal. No, actually it was, I would say what Sam Gituku said. They came, they saw, they spoke, then they went.
Yes. Prof?
And I want to add the real problem with these guys is that they are really not credible. What do I mean? They live in these places. These are the people they represent. And I keep saying that on camera, that Kenya is amongst the very few countries where we have people and children who live worse than animals. They can't go to the toilet. They go to those type of schools. They have no roof over their heads and so on. These celebrity fellows we are talking about, they go to those places. They see these buildings.
Do they though?
The thing is, they do nothing about them. Then they wait for death to happen. And then they suddenly appear on camera there, pointing fingers, and you wonder at whom, because they are the ones who've elected and given the responsibility to deal with these social issues and social challenges. And we don't even see them trying to. We don't, I'm not saying they should have built schools in Gandu.
Yeah.
But surely, what is so difficult in speaking the same things they're speaking now? To say, in my constituency, I have a ward with no schools.
Right.
So then, when they start making their arguments, you can say that, yes, I mean, we know KJ has been making noise about this thing. Now, unfortunately, a tragedy has happened. And there'll be a sense of credibility there. But we know what members of parliament, all these guys talk about. They never think about these things at all.
And here's the thing, Prof, I want to ask, because now we're calling for an audit.
Right.
Again.
Correct.
Of the state of buildings, particularly schools.
Right.
So then after the audit, then what? Because we did it after Huruma. Then there was Huruma 2, 3, 4. I think there was one where 2 people died, 3 people died.
Correct.
And there was actually one task force by the president that found that 42%, only 42% of buildings in the whole country are habitable.
Correct.
That's less than half.
Yes. And the ministry is even more exciting because, and Professor Magoha highlighted that reality, that the ministry has 1,500 quality assurance officers. The ministry has about 36,000 schools. If you do the maths quickly, it means that one quality assurance officer is in charge of 20 schools.
20, yeah.
And the good professor was telling us that actually they have no capacity to do quality assurance in the schools. If one official is in charge of 20 schools, it means that in 1 month, the guy would have checked 100% of the schools and can actually retire. He can go live.
Has 10 free days.
Yes.
The rest of the year. So, honestly, how do you come to the nation and tell us that the ministry does not have capacity to check the schools? And these are the worrisome things that we are seeing, that we are finding a government that is irresponsible. As Lina said, we are finding a government that is juvenile. It's not an adult government. Those schools we're talking about, of course, government has built no school at all, but that's neither here nor there. If government says there's a standard that you, private sector, must adhere to, private sector would adhere to that standard.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Let me just read one SMS here from Kembi Gachuri, former senator. It says, what happened to inspectorates? There was a time every developer had to have an occupation license from the local authority, which is now the county government, before it could be occupied. The county government is as much to blame as the school developer, as is the Ministry of Education. Correct. We're just being reactionary here, and I expect the architect to state as much. Correct. He just did. The CS Education should tell us what his inspectorate department is doing, what you've just asked. Correct. If they found Pama, I believe that's the Precious school, was insecure and closed it, where were they when this collapsed school was an obvious death trap? Bottom line, corruption.
Absolutely. And I agree, I agree, Yvonne. I mean, symbolically, really, our current governance and regulatory structures are, quite honestly, not too different from the flow that we saw at Precious Blood. Precious
Talent Academy. Yeah, that's
it's that bad.
That's and
it can come down any time. It's about lack of seriousness. Just taking the concept of governance seriously. When you are in government, it means you are in charge. Supervision, regulation. Oversight. Just make sure you take care of the interest of those who are particularly vulnerable.
Indeed.
That is the reason we organize ourselves around government.
Let's